So today we're going to be switching gears and I'm going to show you how to properly care for your vintage Dooney and Bourke all-weather leather. With the right tools and a little patience, your vintage bags can look as good as new. But before we dive into all that, hey guys, my name's Caleb. I post luxury and lifestyle related content every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. If that's something you're into, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Check out our membership. We have an amazing engaged community, a full safe space Discord, extra perks, access, you name it. So hit the join button below to learn more about the memberships. So today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about vintage Dooney and Bourke all-weather leather, what it is, how to care for it, and the proper tools to do so. But before we dive in and start to clean this bag, first of all, we have to understand a little bit about the tanning process behind AWL and how it gets its name all-weather leather. Dooney and Bourke got its start in 1975, and it wasn't until 1983 that the synonymous all-weather leather, or AWL, was introduced to the brand's lineup. Now, the big secret behind AWL and what makes it so waterproof is part of its tanning process. To kind of dumb it down and save us a little bit of time, essentially the leather is tanned and then they lay it out, and as it shrinks the pores within the leather, so that makes it waterproof. Essentially waterproof, I should say. This is really important to understand before we get into cleaning, because there's a lot of misconceptions about how to care for these vintage bags, how to clean these vintage bags, and no shade to my fellow creators, but I cringe a little bit each time someone makes a Dooney cleaning video, especially Dooney dunking videos. Do not do Dooney dunking. It will literally ruin your bag. I unfortunately found a gorgeous example of an Essex top handle. Someone had Dooney dunked it and my flap was a little wonky. I cannot stress enough, no Dooney dunking. Essentially Dooney dunking, people think that you can just take these bags, throw them in a tub of water, and they'll come out fine. They will not. You will in fact undo the tanning process. It will no longer be waterproof. And if you're lucky, you won't make it a little bit wonky once it dries. Knowing that, this is going to give us the key bit of information on how we're going to clean it, the products we're going to use to clean it. Also, I cannot stress enough, only utilize leather moisturizer on the British tan trim. Do not get it on the pebbled leather because, again, just like Dooney dunking, it's going to open those pores. You're going to undo all that beautiful waterproof technology that's built into these gorgeous vintage bags. And yeah, I'm going to show you the right way to do this. The most important thing to use when cleaning your vintage Dooney and Bourke is a good amount of distilled water. Why distilled water, you ask? Distilled water goes through a much more rigorous purification process. It's not going to have different contaminants, minerals that might oxidize what you're cleaning. With distilled water, we have a better control and a more gentle clean of what we're working on. Aside from that, I also like to use a little bit of Ivory Soap. Much like distilled water, Ivory Soap, it's very simple. There's no additives. It is just good, clean, honest soap. Now, to apply the soap to the bag, we're going to use two different brushes. First up, for cleaning, I like to use this round brush. It's a little bit smaller and it helps me kind of guide where I want the cleaning solution to go. It also helps me keep it away from the edges, which might make the British tan trim bleed a little bit. Now, last but not least, we'll finish up the pebbled leather portion with a nice buff with this horsehair brush. Now, to clean up the trim, I like to use two different products. First, I use a nice, good leather moisturizer. This is from Apple Leather Care. I have been using this product for several years. I swear by it. It is amazing. Now, I've already explained not to use any type of leather conditioner on the pebbled leather portion. This is solely for any of the British tan trim along the edges or any of the accents, the strap, things like that. Make sure to keep this off of the pebbled leather portion because, again, this could open the pores and completely ruin the all-weather leather characteristic that is so important for this bag. Last but not least, and also probably the hardest product to find, is a good amount of KIWI shoe polish. Now, this is the color tan, and this is the exact match for any British tan trim, saddle trim that you're going to have on any of your vintage Dooney and Bourkes. And it is a lifesaver, especially when you're trying to resuscitate some of these older vintage bags that have a little bit more corner wear. And last but not least, I like to apply those last two products with a little bit of soft cotton felt rounds. Now let's get started. All right, so now that we're ready to begin, let's go ahead and get our soap ready. So just go ahead, get yourself a bowl and pour your distilled water into the same thing. It's not gonna be that dirty, so you don't really have to worry. Well, in my case, it's not gonna be that dirty. Your bag might be a little bit rougher than mine. Just make sure you have enough room to kind of get your brush wet, get the soap, and then apply it to the bag. Now this bag I have already cleaned and treated myself. and it turned out stunningly. So style-wise, this is the large Essex, and quite frankly, one of my most favorite bags. I literally cannot get this out of my closet because I will not change bags until my shoulder hurts, which is usually about a month in. Top 5 bags. Like, I love my Birkin. I love this bag just as much. Like, if that says anything, that is how much I love this bag. This is the small saddle bag, and again, they're both in the color bone, which is my favorite vintage Dooney and Bourke all-weather leather color. I think it's a beautiful year-round shade of white. It's a nice warm white. It's going to look beautiful when you're on the sailboat in Cape Cod, or if you're staying at the ranch in Sonoma County, wine tasting. Beautiful color for that, and it also works great with winter whites. It's a nice warm white, so it's not going to be too jarring against the snow. It's a stunning bag, and it's perfect for all occasions. This bag is super cute. Again, much like my large Essex, this is also one of my favorite bags. It fits just enough of what you need. There's slip pockets on the back of both, and there's something just so beautifully comforting with these vintage Dooney and Bourke bags. They're very familiar, they're beautifully crafted, and they're truly like the best quality bags you can buy out there. And you know, I have a closet of Hermès, LV, Gucci, you name it. These are some of my best made bags. I cannot stress that enough. Now that we've let our soap prepare, let's start cleaning up our large Essex. All right, so first, what I always like to do is kind of assess the bag, see where my problem areas are, see what I need to concentrate on. Maybe there's steps I can skip if another, you know, if a particular part doesn't need as much attention. Looking at this bag, it looks like there's just an overall, just like a usual amount of surface dirt. I mean, I have my stuffing in there, of course. I think the previous owner did a little bit of spot cleaning on this, which with the bone, it just made those areas look clean. And you can kind of see here on camera and a few spots where they cleaned it. But overall, it's in really beautiful shape. With Dooney and Bourke, these vintage all-weather leathers, all of the hardware and accoutrement, they're going to be solid brass. So you could take it one step further if you wanted and do like a Brasso cleaning treatment on all of this hardware. I don't particularly care to do all that just because something about vintage brass that's been polished, it can kind of make it just look a little dull, a little, it's both shiny and dull at the same time, and to me that just doesn't look right. I like to have a little bit of character still on the bags once I'm done cleaning them, because after all, both of these bags are probably 20, nearly 30 years old, so they should look it. All right, so aside from doing the body of the bag, we have our work cut out for us here on the trim. Now, when I was selecting a vintage bag, I made sure that these corners and the edges were in good enough shape. They do show a little bit of wear. It's just natural because the way that the bag is worn. This strap is going to rub up here against the russet leather trim. Same for the other side, but the corners overall are pretty decent. However, like I was saying, this is my secret weapon. This tan shoe polish, it's the exact shade of this leather, and it's going to look 10 times better. Case in point, the saddlebag that I cleaned up, this one had a lot of edge wear, especially here around the back. And as you can tell, it's nearly perfect now after just a few coats of shoe polish. All right, I've talked enough. Let's get to cleaning. All right, so now we are going to take our round horsehair brush, dip in some water, get it a little bit wet. Now you don't want this to be soaking, so just get enough to kind of activate the soap, if you will. All right, so once we have our brush, we're gonna work in circular motions and work in small areas. You don't wanna start and do like the whole area. Start here, 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 segment it up a little bit. Now, once you have your area, you know, clean the first round, take a clean cloth and wipe off any soap and excess water. Now you can tell it's not too dirty, but just enough came off. And I don't know if this is catching on camera, but you can see we're already lightening the color a little bit here. So we're going to keep going. I'm probably going to do a couple different passes because I really like where this is headed. So let's keep going. Also, make sure while you're working not to get the underside wet. The backside is unfinished suede, so be cognizant of that and don't soak the bag too much. So that's just after a few passes. Can you already tell the difference here compared to here? Now don't worry about getting the British tan too wet. Again, these bags are designed to be able to take it, but just be mindful. Don't saturate that area. That area we're just gonna basically leather moisturize and then add a little bit of shoe polish to shine it up. Let me finish this flap and then I'll check in. All right, guys, so I'm going to finish up the all-weather leather portion of this bag. So I'm going to work on the bottoms, the sides, and the back. Now, when you're doing the back, just be mindful. Try not to go too far down into this pocket because, again, the inside is suede. You don't want to ruin the nap of the suede, so keep that in mind. Once I'm done with this bag, I'll show you the process, and then next we'll tackle the trim and the strap. I have a few tips and tricks for you. So for this next part, we're just going to take our longer horsehair brush and just buff across the bag. This is going to kind of help give it a nice shine, a nice refresh, if you will. Consider this the Hermès spa for Dooney and Bourke. I like to do this part before I add any creams or shoe shine to the edges, just so that way I'm not smearing it across the bag. Now you could wait to do this process at the very end once everything is dry, but this bag doesn't need a whole lot of attention as far as the trim goes. I'm kind of lucky in that regard. So one of the most important things to know about cleaning the trims of the bag is you have to be very precise and very careful. For this step, I'm going to also employ the use of some Q-tips just so I can really get into the edge trim here and not worry about bleeding the color onto the bone leather. Now, if you're working with a darker pebbled leather, that might not be as much of a concern, but I want to preserve this nice crisp cream as best I can. Also to note is the strap. Now the straps are designed to be completely removable. You can remove it from here. You can also remove the D-ring from down here. So you can completely take these off. Just know, in my years of collecting vintage Dooney and Bourke, I have run into where these might be a little too dry, because think about it, they've been closed in this position for decades, quite literally, and they start to crack. So make sure to kind of test it before you go full force to open it, because I guarantee you, some of you out there are going to end up cracking your straps, and that will completely null and void the bag. Watch out for that. Now, let's get a close look and see how I treat this trim. All right, next up, we're going to work on our trims. So for this part, like I said, I love using Apple Leather Care. It's beautifully formulated to really work well with the leather on your bag. There's not a whole lot of additives. We'll just say that. It's a nice, good, clean moisturizer. Again, though, the most important part before we begin, do not get this on the all-weather leather portion, the pebbled leather, if you will. Again, that's going to open those pores and deactivate the all-weather leather technology that they put into this when they tan this at the factories. So be very cognizant of that. By nature, all-weather leather, pebbled leather, it's going to have a nice kind of almost, I don't want to call it dry, but it's not going to feel like moisture like some of your more modern leathers. It is naturally going to be a little bit matte, a little bit dull to the touch. Now, if you're working with a bag that has like maybe an extreme case where it's like drying out and it needs that conditioner, well, you're beyond the point of waterproof anyway. Go ahead and apply some. But if your bag is in decent condition, we'll say okay to good condition, just skip the conditioner on the pebbled leather until you absolutely need it. All right, so we're gonna take our felt rounds. These you can just pick up in the makeup section. I get mine at Target. Super affordable, super easy to find. They're with Q-tips and things like that. You're gonna first shake your moisturizer, and then you're gonna put just a little bit on the center of your pad. Not a lot. We don't want to be too overzealous with this part. So then I always like to start with my duck. The Dooney and Bourke duck, it is a symbol of the brand because think about it, all-weather leather, water off a duck's back. It's perfect. So we're going to take our felt round and we're just going to apply a little bit of moisturizer here around our duck. Notice how I'm not getting any on the pebbled leather. I'm keeping it all right here on the duck. Already looking a little bit better, isn't he? Now with this part, the over-under closures on these Essex bags, they get a lot of wear because think about it. This is where you're touching it. This is where you're pulling up. You're going to see some wrinkling here. So I like to pay extra attention to this area whenever I'm working on my Essex bags. So let's apply a little bit more moisturizer. We're just going to keep using the same pad during this part. And then we are going to go right down the center here. You can work in nice circular motions just like we did when we cleaned, but make sure to really apply a good amount here. Get it nice and moisturized. Now, keep in mind, this is a free part right here, so you could totally open this up and moisturize it from the backside as well to make sure it's extra protected. And then I like to do this plaque part behind it as well, just to make sure, you know, everything stays in working order, nothing dries out, especially considering how important this part is to keeping the bag closed. So that also helped us lift up a little bit of dirt as well. That's totally fine. Now let's take a dry pad and just kind of wipe any excess off. Now, this next part you're gonna have to be very careful with. So next we're gonna do the trim. Now, like I said, you don't wanna get any moisturizer on the pebbled leather. Conversely, once it's moisturized on this side, make sure not to let the flap lie down until it's dry. This might cause some color transfer, especially for these lighter bags. Unfortunately, mine has a very little bit here where the flap would lay. But again, these are 20, 30-year-old bags. We're not looking for perfection. We're just looking to give it a little bit more oomph, a little bit of life, if you will. We'll start with a fresh pad, add a little bit more moisturizer. Now, because of the nature of this section, you want to be a little bit lighter with your application here. So what I like to do is I like to just kind of spread it out to kind of make the conditioner lengthwise. And then I will flip it over like so. And then I'll just go around the edge. And I like to put my finger back behind it as well, so that way any excess just gets onto me and I can wipe my hands off. Again, just like before, make sure to get underneath here. And we are just getting the front side of this trim moisturized. Now, depending on your bag, you might need to do this 2 or 3 times just to make sure you get a nice coat of conditioner on there. Again, mine is in pretty good condition and I already did my trim about a year ago, so I'm still in pretty good shape. However, for those of you with rougher bags, keep in mind, you can only do so much to really bring these back to life. So do this once or twice, and then the secret is going to be with the shoe shine, which I'll show you here in a second. All right, guys, so we have cleaned, we've buffed, we've moisturized. But next up, we are ready for my secret weapon. Now, this is KIWI shoe polish, and the color is tan. KIWI offers a wide variety of shoe polish colors, but the one that you absolutely want is going to be the tan color. This is the perfect match for Dooney and Bourke Saddle Tan Trim. Now, to open, all you do is turn the key here on the side, which will make it pop up. And then it will reveal the disc of wax. For easy application, I like to take a Q-tip, and I like to get just enough on my Q-tip. So with this, we're not looking for all over coverage. We're just looking to help kind of mask some of the extra wear or discoloration that this bag has experienced after many years of use. So where I like to apply this first is going to be here on the edges. For my bag, overall the condition is really good, otherwise I wouldn't have bought it, save space. There's going to be some rubbing here. It is just natural with this design. So what we're going to do is we're going to open it up, and again, for those of you working with a bone colored bag or a lighter color bag, do not get this on the body of the bag. You will ultimately discolor it. It's kind of hard to work with. So we've got it on our Q-tip, and we're just going to start to lightly color it on here. And it's going to come on a little bit darker at first, but then it's going to dry beautifully and help cover up some of these extra wear marks that we see here on the bag. And again, much like the moisturizer, depending on your bag and the state that it's in, this could take one application, it could take several. Just make sure to let this dry in between applications so that way it'll go on a little bit better and you're going to achieve the results that you desire. And again, make sure to avoid working underneath the flap here, just because once it closes, this could discolor the front of the bag. So I'm just working on the sides here where we have damage. And then down here on the corners, there's a little bit more wear. All right, so we're just gonna let that sit and let it activate, and then we're gonna come back here in a minute. All right, so I have added my shoe polish, and what I like to do, while it's still kind of tacky, take a fresh felt round and really apply pressure, a gentle pressure, between your finger and thumb, and help really work that shoe polish in. This is gonna get into all those like little nooks and crannies and cracks, and help kind of even out the color. Now look, we're not looking for perfection, we're just trying to preserve, make this bag last as long as possible. These bags are beautifully crafted, and if truly treated right, they're gonna last you a lifetime. That's no exaggeration. And just like that, we're done. You guys, it is literally so easy. The only things you need are the right tools, a little bit of patience, and the know-how to preserve your Dooney and Bourke all-weather leather bags for the rest of your life. These bags are gorgeous, they're meant to last, they're meant to be used, you just have to treat them properly. Thank you guys for joining me today. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. Find me over on Instagram at caleb.snell.designer. And until next time, stay safe, have fun. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.